Welcome back to Cove Street Boatworks, a show dedicated to hobbyists and passionate amateurs interested in wooden boat building and restoration. I'm your host, Max Mattoon. This is going to be a fairly short episode. I've been asked to explain a little bit about my background, where my boat building experience came from, and then I want to talk about the objectives for this channel. I've had a lot of people ask me, when will I get into showing detailed restorations from start to finish? That's really not the objective of this channel, at least what I was thinking, so I'd like to talk to you about that. Let's start out with my history. Back in the 1980s, I was working in the pulp and paper industry, and I worked with a lot of people that were very interested in doing wooden boat restoration because they wanted to go out and sail. At the time, arc-bottomed one designs like snipes, comets, lightnings, up to stars. They were plentiful, they were everywhere. People had moved to fiberglass, so the wooden boats were really inexpensive. You could pick them up for next to nothing and do a little bit of work on them and put them back in the water, and they'd race somewhat competitively. So we started buying up a lot of stuff, especially comets and lightnings. And we rebuilt them and we put them back in the water, and we had a great time racing, sailing. That was the ultimate objective, was to get a boat back in the water and go use it. So we did this for a number of years, and we built a little fleet amongst us, and it was a lot of fun. And as that went on, the pulp and paper industry sort of dwindled in this country, and the company I was working for and they were working for, they were moving down south, and I thought it was time for a career change. So I was going to go back to college, and I had this stupid idea about doing restorations to be able to provide income for my family while I was a full-time student. And this was a ridiculous idea. I had no business experience, no business acumen, but I went ahead and did it anyways. And I took on my earliest restorations. The very first restoration I took on was a Century. The second restoration I took on, Century Resorter, the second one I took on was a Fay and Bowen. And I had had some steam bending experience and riveting experience, so I knew a little bit about what I was getting into. From the skill perspective, it wasn't a big stretch for me. I had a lot to learn, but there was a lot of great people around at that time to be able to learn from, and I'll talk about that. But the business side of it really was challenging, and it's not something that's easy. And I just wasn't really good at it, and that sort of plagued me through this whole thing. But we're in the 1990s now. I had done a number of restorations. They had come out well. I had charged enough so that I was making a little bit of money, but not a lot. And I got to meet people like Captain John Hilton up in Lake George, New York, who was a big Fay and Bowen expert. And he introduced me to many people up in the Lake George area, as well as giving me access to his pretty substantial collection so that I could go and see how actually, good examples of things, how they were done, how they were originally constructed. He had a lot of historical data. He introduced me to Bill Morgan up at Hackercraft, who let me wander around the shop. I got to meet some of the people at Blue Mountain Lake. Bill Gates, the Lake George historian and steamboat captain. I got to work on some museum things for him. And that just led one thing into another, meeting people who were very successful restorers and still are, like Bo and Kathy Muller. They got me, they let me wander around in their shop and ask them a lot of stupid, green questions. Don Dannenberg, all these people were just really, really open to having some young upstart like me ask them questions. No matter how dumb they were, they never made me feel bad. And they always encouraged me to keep moving forward. That spread out as I got more interested in getting back to my roots in sailboats. I fell in love with the Wayano Senior. It came out in a wooden boat magazine as a featured hull, I think back during one of its anniversaries. And I just fell in love with this boat, gaff rigged and just beautiful looking boat. So my wife at the time, her family had a house in Dennisport, and we would go down there and we'd spend a lot of time down there during the summer. And I began to haunt the Crosby boatyard in Ned Crosby's boatyard. I got to meet Teddy Crosby. I got to meet the Lawrence family, who are famous for racing and long involvement with sailing on the Cape. I got to meet Mike Bigelow. Probably, you know, between the Crosbys and the Bigelow family, those are the two earliest families, or among the two earliest families on the Cape to be building boats. So I got all this opportunity to be exposed to and influenced by all these really brilliant people. It made me a good craftsman. Didn't help out with my business acumen, but I became very knowledgeable at a lot of these very specific constructions, you know, whether it be, you know, pre-World War II launches, Fay and Bowen, speedways, brooks, those kinds of things, where they were clench nailed. I became very good at things that a lot of shops wouldn't want to touch because they were risky and they didn't know how to estimate them. They were smart. I wasn't, because they were right. They were risky. They were really hard to estimate. I was always going over estimates. I was always losing money on these jobs, but I really liked what I was doing. So we just kept pushing forward. We got into, through Captain John Hilton, he introduced us to the Stanecki family. They had some unrestored hydroplanes, which I was fascinated by because they were so special, built by the small collection, the small culture of people. So we got to pick up a Sui 280, Vagabond was the name of the boat, and we got to pick up some Harold Ruark boats there, some blue chip type 145 class. I got to actually speak to Harold Ruark, who sent me some of his patterns. We got to speak very briefly with Dick Sui. We did some Farmer 280 class hydroplanes, and I got to go down and spend the weekend with he and his son, and Will was really, really generous with his time and talked to me about the history and about how they actually put these boats together, you know, how they rapidly built them just to get them on the water and test theories and then go back and build the next one. They were pretty much disposable boats, and they were always trying to learn from them and incorporate their new learnings into the next design. And some of the ways they approached it was far, far different than traditional boat building. And I was just fascinated by this culture. So that sense of community is what I would like to recreate in this channel. I would like to have this open to not just what I'm working on, but I'd like to share this space with what you're working on. I'd like to have you send in your videos and have me interview you, or come up and take a look at the project that you're doing. Maybe we'll discover some cool boats online, you know, and want to go out and take a look at them. We can get together, and I would love to go up and, you know, take a look at some boat that you've uncovered in some barn somewhere. We can keep it on the QT as far as where it is, but just sharing that initial experience. Today I just found a 26-foot St. Lawrence skiff with a motor with a Model T engine in it that's for sale in southern Vermont, not too far from here. And I would love to go up and take a look at this and video it. It's been in the same family for 100 years. It looks incredible. The cost is a really reasonable asking price, so I'm very interested in going up and taking a look at that. Not that I need another boat, and don't tell my wife, but those things I would love to be able to share with you. You know, those first discoveries, walking into a barn, taking a look at something for the first time, those are really exciting, and I know there's some of you out there that share those kinds of feelings. So if we can make this into more of a community, I would be really, really interested in trying to get there. That is my objective. I would love to hear from you. Tell me what your concepts are, what your ideas are, how we can make this a working community that brings value to everybody that participates, and how we can get more people to participate. So please leave your comments below. Give me your feedback. I'm really interested in hearing from you. And you know, like always, like and subscribe, and I look forward to sharing the next episode with you. Thank you very much.